From a highly secure network of top secret locations across North America, this is the Spurs Insider, hitting the home stretch edition. They're still playing edition. We're still talking edition. I'm Mike Finger. I'm joined by Express News Spurs beat writers Jeff McDonald and Tom Orsborn, who are hitting their peak heading into the postseason. There's not a postseason to cover, but Jeff McDonald from his secure location somewhere on the West Coast, are you still in it? Are you still feeling the enthusiasm for this job that has taken so many twists and turns over the last 6 months or so?
I mean, for that rousing introduction, how could I not?
Uh-huh.
We're still doing this, I guess, everybody. All right, here we go. We're going to do this. I guess we're still doing it. Yeah, that got me so... It was like Newt Rockney.
Uh-huh.
You got me so fired up to do this podcast with that.
For the kids at home, yes. the Generation Z, even some of the millennials, explain to the kids who Newt Rockney was.
He was the lead singer of Motorhead.
Exactly right.
Motorhead. Yes.
And is there a win one for the Gipper speech for the local Cagers as they hit the final 4 games of their season? Is there something to play for? Is there pride? Is there personal satisfaction? Is there momentum to take into another season next year? Why are people watching? Why are you covering with 4 games to go?
That's them asking. Why are we watching? And why are we covering with 4? I mean, yeah, sure, there's pride or whatever, or momentum. You can say whatever.
Pride or whatever. Put that on a t-shirt and sell it at the Crossbank Center fan store. Pride or whatever.
You can say all that, but like it kicks in or it doesn't, and there's 4 games left, and it's just play off the string, and that's what they're doing. So anyway, this is not going well. Let's think of something we could talk about. What do you want to talk about? Something.
We'll let Tom. Tom's last road game of the season was at Portland, and I think that was a significant game, not only because it mathematically eliminated the Spurs from the play-in race, but like when we're talking about what the last week of the season can affect. Like, I think it kind of cemented the Spurs in the position of having the 8th worst record in the NBA this season. I don't see them doing anything this week now to finish with the 7th worst record. I don't see them doing anything to finish with the 9th worst record. They kind of are where they are. And that's sort of not too far from where we expected them to be to start the season. I think this is what we're going to talk about this week. We're going to reflect before the end. We'll reflect more next week. But looking back to start the season, we all had them, I think, around 34, 35 victories, finishing out of the play-in picture in the Western Conference. And even though Victor Wembanyama did not play after the midway point of the rodeo road trip, they got where we thought they'd be, and this is more of a step forward than the Spurs had the last couple of years. Isn't that? Wouldn't you agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, I think so. I think I can't remember what I predicted. Maybe 30, 35, I guess. I don't know, but you're right. And they, yeah, I mean they did it without Wemby. They're proud of that, and yeah, the unspoken theme of that game, you're right, Mike, was solidifying the number 8 spot. But they gave it a good go, tried to win it as they always do. But yeah, that was the pop the champagne cork moment, that they did lock up pretty much that it increases the odds. That's a good thing. So yeah.
And to get into specifics on that, I'm sorry to cut you off there, Tom.
All right. You do it often. You do it often.
And you seem so cool with it.
Yeah.
By finishing in 8th, the Spurs will have a 26.3% chance to move up to a top 4 spot, which could be very significant this year. I think there's a clear-cut top 4 prospects in this NBA draft, and the Spurs would be delighted to get any one of those 4. I think they'd be delighted to get any one of the top 8, to hope that no one behind them moves up in the lottery drawing. I think they could get a really good player at 8. I think they could get another really good player with Atlanta's pick somewhere in the mid-teens or so. There's optimism there, but the mathematical probabilities that Tom was referring to, if they would have dropped to 9th, that number reduces to 20% from 26%. As for getting number 1 pick, Cooper Flagg, who I got to talk to and watch this weekend at the Alamo Dome at the Final Four, where one Victor Wembanyama was also seen last night. Number 1 pick is 6% from the 8th spot. So those are your chances of possibly teaming Victor Wembanyama with Cooper Flagg. And we'll be talking about the lottery and all that kind of stuff more in future podcasts, but that is sort of finalized now. We know what the percentages are going to be, and that's fine. I do want to get back to you, Tom, on thinking about the season preview that we did those many months ago, and we made our victory predictions. We also were kind of talking about what we expected the whole season to look like. And it's weird. We only got a half season or I guess 2/3 of the season from Victor Wembanyama. Greg Popovich was out less than a month into the season. So many weird things happened this year, but just kind of piece by piece, player by player, trend by trend. How did you think, looking back on your expectations in October, how do you think overall it played out as the season went on, Tom?
Well, I don't think anyone saw Steph Castle, doing what he did. Being the 4th overall pick, you thought he was going to be good, but what a season he's had, and he's finishing it so strong with these consecutive games of 15, 5, and 5. 2 near triple doubles. He's the bright spot. What a season he's had, and the future looks so damn bright for this guy. That's what sticks out to me most.
And what I remember about our discussions about him in October in the preseason, I think there was consensus among us that he might turn out to be the best player in that draft. Spurs were really high on him. He played 1 year at UConn, had a really raw jump shot. And I think what we talked about was that this might not be the guy who's going to win Rookie of the Year, because other players are going to get more of a chance to play more and to be immediately impactful, but that he was going to be a difference maker in the long term. And we sort of got the first part of that wrong, because he became sort of the runaway favorite for the Rookie of the Year award, because the Spurs immediately, even when Greg Popovich was coaching, from that first game in Dallas, which seems like ages ago, Pop had him out there in crunch time, or in the most important moments of that game. And the Spurs kept that up for most of the season. When they acquired De'Aaron Fox, he went back to his bench role, but still played meaningful minutes. And then when Fox and Wemby both shut it down, he became kind of the lead guy, and he's thrived in all that stuff. And I think Tom's right. That's something that we did not see coming, how immediately integral he would be to everything, and how much of an opportunity he'd have to win, to play the minutes and get the usage that Rookie of the Years have, and he made the most of it, Jeff.
Yeah, he was I think probably going to win it anyway, but when Victor and De'Aaron went out, and he just became kind of the go-to guy, kind of had the ball in his hands a lot more than he would have had those two guys still been around. I think when that moment happened and he seized it, I think that's what solidified it for him. Like he's been able to really compile those counting stats that we all love, to pick the Rookie of the Year on, especially in a year like this where there's not anybody else that's just wowing you, So He did a good job of taking advantage of the various situations that were presented to him and thriving in kind of a couple different roles. I think we've talked about it before, where he's been a starter, he's come off the bench, he's played on the ball, he's played off the ball, he's defended this guy, he's defended that guy. Spurs threw a lot at him as a rookie, and he pretty much handled it all, better than probably you could have expected. So definitely a worthy rookie of the year in my eyes. And I get a vote, so that counts.
There you go. I don't know if you want to get reflective, or if you could even remember the other sentiments that you had back in October when we were advancing this season. But do you can you think of anything that you thought then that sort of surprised you about what happened in the months that ensued?
I remember our Harrison Barnes discussion.
Kind of.
What's that?
Oh,
the
I was gonna bring that up.
That's true, Tom.
Yeah, and I alone.
Of course, you remember that. You're gonna throw it in all our faces.
He was not a throw-in guy. He was going to have, he can still play. Harry B can still play.
I think the discussion was they don't.
Tom was. I think the.
Well, hold on.
He held up his part of the prediction.
Agreed. I think the argument was the Spurs don't want him to be great to have a good year, and he was great for what he is, but they won 32 games, so
yeah,
right. But still,
yeah. Well, there were a couple of things. One Tom absolutely got right, where I think I was, and I will take the bullet here. One thing I'd mentioned is Harrison Barnes seemed to be the guy who was going to start the season in the starting lineup because he's a veteran, but that when the younger guys kind of made their moves, that he eventually might be moved to the side. A guy who
he's gonna start every game next year too.
He started every game, played every game,
and he's going to start every game next year too. As long as he's around,
he's probably going to start every game next year too. Like, that's the part that I absolutely was wrong on. I think the point that Jeff and I were making on that October, I think it was October, the October podcast, was that we did not view the performance of Harrison Barnes as one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 factors that would determine whether or not the Spurs had a successful season or not. And on that point, I think we were validated to a degree, because Harrison Barnes had a better season than any of us could have expected, and the Spurs still are going to lose 48, 49 games. So he's great. He was more than a throw-in. I don't think we ever called him a throw-in. Great in the community, great in the locker room, just an awesome dude. Come on, Tom. Say it with your chest. If you're calling me out, say it with your chest. Don't just sit there and say,
I remember that word being used. I'm not going to link it specifically to you, Mike Finger, but I think that word might have been used somewhere.
I'm going to blame it on Nick Talbot because he's not here. We'll just say he said it.
Okay.
He might have. The point was, he would not have been in the deal. He would not have been included if it wasn't just to make salaries work. Like, that's why the Spurs grabbed the guy, and that's still sort of true. But he exceeded everyone's expectations. He's going.
I know. I'm just giving him a lot of praise here. God, what a steady guy that Harrison Barnes, in every respect. I mean, my gosh.
He's been great.
He's been great.
I've enjoyed our Chris Paul experience. I mean, he's probably what they wanted, on the floor and in the locker room. But with us, I really enjoyed it. Like, it's been fun.
I walked into the pregame interview room in Portland, and a gentleman, I don't know who it was, a gentleman from Portland, someone in their media contingent, said, first thing he said to me is Chris Paul playing tonight? and I was like, what? Wait a minute. What? And he had nothing to base that on other than Chris Paul's age, the point of the season. I guess he hadn't followed the Spurs of last season.
I think Chris Paul, he could. It's like that Monty Python Black Knight guy. Like if he had his arms cut off,
Right.
he would still just drag his stump of a torso onto the floor
Yes.
to get that game in. Like we're at this point of the season, he's not missing a game or anything.
And no question. He is
There's no question.
determined.
Like
Determined.
he could have a bone sticking out somewhere, and he's gonna get his butt on that floor. And
Yes, he wants it badly. Yes.
I like what I've liked about Chris Paul, which I guess shouldn't surprise us, is his what you might call it keeping it real. I love his keeping it real when he talks to us. That's the
I'm not familiar with that.
He had a big one.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, that was great. Like Tom's just trying to get him to say something nice about Devin Vassell and the way he's played, and kind of elevate his game at this time of year, late in the year, when guys are out. And Chris was just kind of like, "Yeah, it doesn't count. This isn't
not
the real
NBA.
This isn't the real NBA. Everyone's playing without it." Yeah, it basically, and reading between the lines of that, it was like, yeah, but Devin's got to figure out how to be what version of this guy can he be when De'Aaron and Victor are around. And I thought that was a really astute
And when the
observation.
games count. Yeah.
And when the games count, yeah. I thought that was an astute thing. It was a thing to say without saying it. He didn't say that exactly, but we knew what he was talking about.
Right.
In other words, Chris Paul would make a pretty good podcaster.
Much better than we've got here, that's for sure. Like I mean, I don't be mean. If we could get Paul to replace you, we absolutely would.
I ain't
think
going
it's
to the
fair.
bench. If
I
you're
guess
sending me to
fair,
the bench,
no.
then trade me.
Chris
We
Paul
will
would come
trade
in
you.
and take control. That's for sure.
I mean, that's his right. He's been in the league a long time. I've been in the league a little longer, and if I mean, I respect him. But I'm not moving to the bench for him. And if you bring him in, you find me another place to land. Find me a landing spot.
I mean, I can find you on
because I'm here to hoop. I'm not here to support other people's takes. I'm here to hoop. And Chris Paul, if you want to go with Chris Paul, that's fine. But you can do it.
There's definitely there's definitely other worse podcasts we could send you to. So just be cool.
I mean, if you send me to a worse podcast where I'm the lead dog, that's fine with me. Like, I just want to get my points. I want to get my stats. I want to get my buckets.
Well,
I'm too old to be worried about championships. Like, if you want to send me to a podcast that's tanking, I can live with that if I get my minutes.
Like if we send you to a podcast where you are the lead dog, it will definitely be worse.
I mean, that's fine, as long as I get my minutes.
I mean, it'll be worse because of anyway. Okay,
and you got to find a place to trade my contract too. That's the other thing. You got to make the math work. So good luck to you.
Oh,
good luck to you.
Burger King, it is.
I think
Burger King even have a podcast.
Burger King might be a raise. Anyway, well, that's something to look forward to next year. Chris Paul takes over this podcast. That would be huge for the listeners. Maybe not great for me, but we'll see how that works.
You always got to be looking over your shoulder.
Chris Paul provided the perfect segue to Devin Vassell, who we talk about every week, and I think Chris Paul put it better than any of us could have put it. I think he was keeping it real. He's shown his signs of progress, but he needs to show it in the games that matter. And that's not me. That's future Spurs Insider host Chris Paul saying it.
/ basketball Hall of Famer.
/ future basketball Hall of Famer. Yeah. I still think there's a lot of potential for Devin Vassell to do exactly what Chris Paul thinks he should do. But he's going to need to prove it again next year. We've done. Go ahead.
Not to belabor the move but if Chris Paul were the host of this podcast, he'd have trouble finding stuff to talk about right now too, because the point that he made is correct. Like, it's hard to judge or evaluate any of this when the two most important players aren't around. So yeah, Devin's doing great. Well, that's hard to it's hard to see what that, how that extrapolates when Victor and Aaron are back here taking all the shots. And conversely, if there's a guy that's not playing well, maybe he would play better if they hadn't, he wasn't as high up in the pecking order as to be, and he needs to go back. Like no one's the role that they're going to play when the two main guys are there, so it's just hard to evaluate who's doing good and who's doing bad. So,
have you guys noticed that Chris Paul always gives you, almost always, like 8, 9 really good minutes, 7, 8, 9 really good minutes, and then it's like, and just the best. Love talking to him, but then it's like I got to go talk to my family, or I got to go look at the film. And I think that might affect the podcast if he takes over. Like it wouldn't be as long.
I think he'd be the host for this. I think
there's an expiration date with him
because that's exactly how this podcast is. 7 or 8 really good minutes, and then we all kind of lose the thread. So anyway, I gotta go say hello to my family in LA. They're here.
That's the Chris Paul thing. I gotta go see my family's waiting on me.
I
gotta go watch the film. I gotta watch the film before I answer that. Maybe we all should watch more film before we comment on basketball. Go ahead, Tom.
He watches a lot of basketball. Harrison Barnes filled us in. I mean, we knew that already, but Harrison talked about that at length after the last home game about the amount of basketball that Chris watched.
My phone will ring at midnight on an off night. And it's Chris want to talk about what if I game's on. And he's like, I'm not watching. Did you see the Lakers? Did you see the Lakers Warriors game? No, I'm like, have a life.
I can't remember the last time or if ever our podcast host has called me at midnight.
Huh. That's because he's asleep. He's asleep. he watches the reruns of Cheers and goes to sleep. Our podcast host.
That sounds like projecting to me. That doesn't sound like my life. My rich.
Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe he's clubbing at midnight. He can't talk. He can't call us at midnight. He's at the clubs, dancing to music.
Mike's kind of like Coach on Cheers, holding the bar together.
You're giving two very different descriptions of the host of this podcast, and that's what makes that's what should give you second thoughts about replacing him with Chris Paul, because one thing you've got to like in a podcast host is an air of mystery. And I think that's what I offer is people don't know what kind of life I lead when when I put this podcast microphone away.
Or who you work
I might be clubbing. I might be Coach from Cheers. You never know.
I think he's more of a Diane Chambers. That little too hoity-toity, little too haughty. Occasionally uses big words that the rest of us don't understand. Just to
a bit of a know-it-all, like
maybe a little Eddie LeBeck.
Yeah, definitely a know-it-all. Definitely know-it-all. And I'm more of I'm Woody. I'm more of the Woody.
There's no argument here.
I think I'm Woody.
That's for sure. Again, we've lost the Generation Z listeners. We've lost the millennials. We've lost the boomers too. Like, no, I don't know. Maybe you should get Chris Paul. Maybe you do need an upgrade. We'll see.
I'm not sure he could discuss Cheers as well.
Speaking of upgrades, how many the Spurs? Let's do this. Going back to the start of this season, another discussion topic was when are the Spurs sort of going to cash their chips in and make the move? Add the next guy, add a running mate for Victor Wembanyama. They did that during this season. They did this before the trade deadline in adding De'Aaron Fox. That was a huge, noteworthy development this season. The question now becomes, do you sort of keep this nucleus, add 2 draft picks, or pull 2 draft picks together, take one higher draft pick, and run it back with this group, or do you expect another major addition this offseason? A major addition by free agency or trade.
I don't know that you need another all-star. I mean, that would be nice. I think this is not me recording, but people are out there like buzzing about like Kevin. I don't know that you need to do that necessarily. I mean, depends on what for. But I mean, at the point now, you've got Victor, you've got De'Aaron. Now it's just kind of plugging holes around them, and some of the holes are significant. Like you need someone who can be a knockdown shooter. Like
Yes.
most teams have that guy.
Probably need more
where
than one of those.
and probably more than one of those. But somewhere between the draft and free agency, you've got to go find someone who can help you in that area right now. That's what I think. And then obviously you need some size behind Victor. Like you just there's no like they don't have an answer at backup center right. They didn't before Victor was hurt, and they didn't before Charles Bassey was hurt for a while. They didn't really have an answer at backup center, and they just need some more size on that second unit, and probably size that can help you with defense and rebounding. So it's not just such a bloodbath every time Victor goes to the bench. So between that and the shooting, the perimeter shooting, I think you have to address those issues this offseason, and whether that's through the draft or free agency or some sort of trade, it can be any combination of that. But I think you're looking for role players right now, specific players that are going to play specific roles, not necessarily another all-star that's going to, need the ball in the hands and to be taking shots away from Victor, shots away from De'Aaron. I don't know. I almost think that might be counterproductive. I think about filling specific roles, specific holes right now.
I would agree, Tom.
Yeah. Knockdown shooter, backup big. Yeah. Get to work, Brian, right? Yeah.
And it'll depend. I would suspect that free
And he will.
agency and the trade market will be affected. Like the choices there are affected by which pick you end up with the draft and who you acquire with that pick or those picks. If you end up with a Con Knipple, who we saw in the Alba Dome this weekend with the Blue Devils, a wing player, a shooter, then maybe you don't need to go after that type of player in free agency, or not make it as high of a priority in free agency. Then the free agent priority becomes the size, the rebounding, the defense, that type of thing. If you end up with a big man in the draft, Kaman, Malawach, there's several big bodies that could be available in the 8, 9, 10, 11 range that could provide you with that rebounding and defense. Then maybe you target the shooting, or you definitely target the shooting in free agency and on the trade market. I think that the draft lottery will determine the course in a lot of ways. You also wonder whether, again, like I sort of alluded to earlier, whether the Spurs make both of the picks or if they go 2 for 1 to trade for a higher guy. There's a lot of really attractive options in this draft, and we'll see if they can help this coming season. Should be fun to watch. The rest of this week, Jeff's on the road. Los Angeles today, Jeff?
I believe so. That's where I am. Yeah.
Okay. And then
it's early here, so I haven't looked out my window. I've got a nice balcony overlooking the airport. Got a great view of the airport. Can see those jumbo jets out my window.
Can you see that In-N-Out burger right there by LAX, or is that how you view?
A little further away.
You got a quick jaunt to San Francisco tomorrow, a visit to Phoenix, and then here's something. Before we talk to the listeners again, we will talk to one Victor Wembanyama, expected to address the unwashed media masses at the Frost Bank Center on Sunday, the day of the Spurs finale against Toronto. And I, for one, am really looking forward to talking to Victor Wembanyama. We have not done that since his diagnosis. I'm sure that conversation will be very enlightening, as most conversations with Victor are. And like legitimately, that should be a big day.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it'll be interesting to hear, his perspective on how all this went down. I don't know that we'll get a whole ton of like new information. Maybe we will. I don't know, but it'll just be interesting to hear what he's been going through and his story. How
I
this all
I
goes.
think I think Victor definitely is more likely to be forthcoming about details about himself than the Spurs have been forthcoming about details, understandably so, about Victor. Like they've presented the the diagnosis when it happened. We're very clear about how long he'd be out, when they expect him to be out, and beyond that, it was like we're not going to get into whether he's had surgery, what the plan is, all that type of stuff is. And I think Victor might provide a little more clarity on that. He's probably not going to go into week by week, day by day, step by step specifics, but it should be. I think it'll be enlightening. We'll see though.
You're probably right. Hey, we ought to give a shout out to our boy Bill Schoening
We definitely should.
before we
Definitely should.
conclude.
A good friend of the podcast, good friend to Spurs fans everywhere, voice of the Spurs for 24 years, Jeff.
24 years.
Jeff and I were around him when he was the voice of the Longhorns. Even before that, we'd known the dude a long time. Jeff and Bill have bonded over music over many road trips over the years. Been very supportive of those of us at the Express News and at the Spurs Insider podcast. Really good guy, fun guy. Glad he's able to go out on his own terms.
You know, I wrote the retirement piece on him, and as I was writing it, I realized I didn't ask, his age, and that's like an important piece of information when you're writing something like that. And so I had texted him and said, Bill, I forgot how old you are, and he told me he was 56. And then I asked him, okay, but how old's the mustache? And he said, He said 60. I thought that was funny.
That was a really good story, Jeff.
I just pictured a 6-year-old Bill Schoening with a mustache, and it made me laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I've always pictured Bill in his childhood is with a mustache. How could you picture him without it?
And he mentioned his music career, that he told me he has 5 songs that he has written. I mean, he's put out CDs before, but he has 5 new songs that he's written and is not recorded, and that one of his plans for retirement. The old great Brent Berry line when Bill put out his first CD and was showing it around to players and people at the with the Spurs, and Brent tells him, "Yeah, Bill, I listened to it. I think it's going to be a million seller." Really, Brent? That's great. Yeah. You're going to have 1 million of them in your cellar.
There you go.
And I thought that was great.
And Bill retold that many times over the years.
Yes. Probably 1 million.
Probably 1 million. What were you going to say, Tom?
Oh, I can picture him without that mustache because I've seen the photo of him playing first base, high school first baseman.
Up in Philly?
In Philly without the mustache. So
I'm pretty sure he was born with the mustache.
yeah, but
he just came out with the mustache on.
I think
shaved it for a while.
There were so many great quotes in your story, Jeff. I really appreciated that one from Mike Kikarillo about, even in ordinary games, non-championship type settings, non-playoff settings, he made it sound like it was a championship game. That I thought that was a huge compliment.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we're usually at the games. I don't get to hear Bill a lot. But in the instances where I do listen to him, and I know him, he's a good friend. We joke around all the time. In personal interactions, he's just a jolly guy. And you don't think of how just spectacular he is at that job. And on the occasions where I'd listen to him do those games, here's the other thing. Few play-by-play guys around the league work by themselves. And Bill worked by himself for basically his whole career. He didn't have a color guy to lean on. So he's talking for 2.5 hours every night, describing everything with no color guy to lean on to fill in the pauses. It takes a really special skill, and he's super awesome at it. Really impressive. That Kikarillo thing was right. He had the right tone to make it sound important, to make it sound like a big deal, and really painted the picture with the words. Like he was a spectacular radio voice. Is a spectacular radio voice. Really, really good at his job.
We win. We win. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, go.
Well, we went and toasted him last night here in Los Angeles. This is going to be our last road trip with Billy, so a lot of us came out to wish him well, and it got a little dusty in there, and
Yeah.
One thing I kind of realized, this is kind of what I told him. It was the same when Bill Land retired, because we're at the I don't know because we're at the games and don't watch as much or see as much because we're there live. I don't know. We personally have a feel for how much these guys mean to Spurs fans. I think we do, but I don't think we actually do. And I get a lot, just as it will land, and I wrote that story. You get a lot of feedback about just memory. Like, I remember, Bill Schoening's voice is the voice of, like, I would listen to him. My dad would drive me back from a baseball tournament, and I listened to, the end of the 2005 championship run. It was Bill Schoening's voice, and you just got so many of those messages where you realize, like, it's a loss, the Spurs fandom, like it's a big change. Yeah, that's another message I got. It was like, first Bill Land, now Bill Schoening, like, what's next? Like, Spurs fans are kind of going through it a little bit with this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not as big as, like, Tim Duncan retiring, but it is kind of just a loss and the end of an era. I mean, I know that's a cliche that we use sometimes, but it really is like an end of an era, and things are not gonna be the same.
Never missed a game in his 3,000 something games in a row, Jeff?
It's not quite.
I know that was the
it's
record.
2000. Yeah. And what he told me was that I didn't remember, but his first season he was still overlapping with UT a little bit, UT football. Like, he was hired in the middle of a UT football season. And then you can see how those seasons would overlap. So at the very beginning, he missed a couple games because he was still doing his UT gig.
Yeah.
But then once that football season was over, and in 2001, I believe it was, he didn't miss a game since. And it was the second longest active streak in the NBA. I think it was 2,084, or I don't want to mess it up because Bill's so proud of it. But it was 2,080 something, or 2,800, something up there. Second longest active streak in the league, next to some freaking maniac from Atlanta. And way behind Chick Hearn, who was in the 3,000s.
Yeah.
So,
well, congrats to Bill. Gonna miss him on the road. Gonna miss him at the arena. Unfortunately, unless Chris Paul changes his mind, the host of this podcast is going to be back next year, and the Spurs listeners are going to be stuck with this voice, who can never fill in that gap. But we'll try to make it work. Did you want to say something before I send off, Jeff?
I thought, considering we're in L.A., Santa Monica, I thought Tom could probably guess where Philly Billy wanted to have his last hurrah.
Yeah, I hope Mary, the waitress, was there. Mary, one of his favorites at Chez.
Loves that place.
Yeah.
Loves that place. So Sean Elliott was there, like the
sand dabs. Good sand dabs.
Well, glad he had his send off. I'm sure the Spurs fans, if you're at the arena on Sunday against the Toronto Raptors to see his last day at the arena, I'm sure he'll appreciate the love that he's bound to get that day. And we will back to recap it all next week in the first postseason edition of the Spurs Insider. Until we see you again, take care of each other and keep it real.